Firstly, I want to say thank you to Black Hills and Unisys for being here today. Truly appreciate you guys joining us as a speaker. So today we're here for a roundtable discussion on the Click 8.3 end of life, and to discuss the, what it looked like from a customer decision-making process that led you guys to Salesforce Field Service. So before we begin our larger conversation, I hand this over to Matt McCallum, our moderator. I would ask that everyone just take a couple seconds to introduce themselves today. So Matt McCallum, why don't you start?
Thanks, Erica. Matt McCallum here. Thank you all for joining us. And I'd echo Erica's comments. In particular, thank you, Matt Seidel from Black Hills and Bill Buck from Unisys for joining us today. I'm the Senior Director of Sales at Unisys, at the Absolute rather. And what we really hope to accomplish today is just share an open discussion around something that we know impacts a lot of our customers, and the Click end of life dynamic and decisions moving forward on how to manage your field service operations. So with that, Erica, I'll hand it back to you for more intros.
Thank you. So we have Derek on our team joining us. Derek, why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Thanks, Erica. So Derek Hoyam, I'm Senior Director of Professional Services. I've been, really my passion has been field service for the past 20 years. I've spent 12 years at one of the largest telcos in Canada, leading their National Dispatch Center and a very large portion of their workforce, close to 1,000 plus technicians. Last 10 years at the Absolute, been primarily working with folks like yourselves, like-minded enterprise field service customers, primarily in the utility, telco, and oil and gas space. My passion is really just helping organizations maximize field service opportunities, and really conversations like this, helping companies learn from my experiences and more so learning from each other. Thanks, Erica.
Thanks, Derek. And Stephen?
Wonderful. Thank you, Erica. So good day, everyone, and thank you for joining. My name is Stephen Sugumar. I'm the Manager of Solutions Consulting here at the Absolute. Been with the company for over 8 years now, so I'm considered the subject matter expert in field service management. That includes both the Click software product as well as Salesforce Field Service.
Great, thank you, Stephen. So as we mentioned, from Black Hills, we have Matt Seidel with us. Matt, why don't you introduce yourself?
Hey, good morning, everybody. I'm Matt Seidel from Black Hills Energy. I'm the Director of Utility Technology Systems, and our company is a regional energy company spanning from Blytheville, Arkansas in the east, all the way to Cody, Wyoming in the west. We serve over 1.2 million customers in 8 states and 800 communities, and have all of the complexities that you might imagine a regional energy company would have, from compliance work to appliance repair to emergency outage response, line locating. We run all of that through our current Click environment, and we're working on moving that all over to Salesforce Field Service with the help from the Absolute.
Great, thank you, Matt. And Bill?
Good afternoon, good morning, everybody. My name is Bill Buck. I work for Unisys Corporation, and for those that are not familiar with Unisys, Unisys started the first adding machine company in 1886, and 100 years later merged with Sperry to become Unisys. So since that time, we've been focusing on technology and innovation, trying to bring that to businesses and governments globally. So in my position as the Global Field Service Manager, I work with various country managers and field operations to bring them the best experience for scheduling their resources in the field.
Great, thank you so much, Bill. All right, so I'm going to hand this over to you, Matt, since you'll be moderating today's roundtable discussion. So there you go.
Appreciate it, Erica. Thank you. So why are we here? A little bit about the Absolute and why this topic is near and dear to our heart and important to discuss. We're a 15+ year Click software partner, played heavily in the enterprise, considered a premier partner with Click. We are now a Salesforce Summit partner, which is top tier. And a lot of that, right, came about by the acquisition by Salesforce of Click. And so that in and of itself drove a lot of change for us internally, as well as our customers, and the opportunity to start to explore field service management on the Salesforce platform, and more broadly, the value of the Salesforce platform. Who we are in the marketplace, we're very vertically focused. We strive to speak the language of customers. So the folks that we have on the team, it's reflected a little bit, and you'll hear from DK a little later on. DK was an operations person on the other side of the business, does not come from a consultancy, nor is he a salesperson, but he understands field service and operations in a very, very deep way, given his experience. So we have folks with those skill sets and that industry experience that puts us in a position to speak the language of our customers. And what we strive to do is, with our operations partners, with our IT folks, lean in and impact those executive conversations that need to take place, especially when you have a compelling event like this, where, an on-prem product is going end of life, driven by Microsoft Silverlight and 8.3 no longer being supported. You got to build a plan. You've got to consider cost, budget, timelines, all those things we normally look at in a project, but that's compressed and condensed when you've got that end of life event that's happening at the end of next year with Click 8.3. So we're positioned really uniquely in the marketplace within the Salesforce ecosystem to provide really robust field service capabilities and expertise with our customers. And so with regard to the topic today, I'd like to kind of start the conversation around, that end of life event, and kind of hear from both Matt and Bill, just the experience with both your organizations when end of life was apparent for 8.3, and it was kind of that final event. Wanting to understand, what were the initial thoughts and concerns? And Matt, I'll start with you from a Black Hills perspective. What was kind of the reaction internally that the business had to dealing with this?
Well, Matt, maybe my initial thought was, oh shoot. End of life is not, something you ever want to hear about one of your core enterprise platforms. And for Black Hills Energy, I mean, that's what it is. It is an enterprise-wide platform. We have over 1 million orders dispatched through Click annually, and it supports over probably 2/3 of our company, all of our regulated utility businesses, as well as our non-regulated appliance repair businesses. So yeah, it was like, oh my gosh, okay, what do we do? So immediately we started thinking about, okay, well, how serious is this? Because sometimes vendors say, hey, it's end of life, but then you get there and it really isn't. For us, the deciding factor was once, Salesforce said, hey, we're a cloud company, we're not supporting on-premise solutions. We made a special arrangement with Microsoft to, keep Silverlight alive until the end of 2023. But after that, there's no more. We knew that they meant business. So then it started becoming a question of timeline. What do we have time to do? Our initial implementation of Click software in the 2013 through 2015 timeframe ended up being, it was a 28-month project to implement it after we got through the entire RFP process. So the whole process from initial idea to fully implementing Click for us was around 52 months. Well, if you rewind the clock here, when Salesforce announcement came out, it was around August of 2020. You do the math, that only left us 40 months to start the process. Now, granted, we didn't have to relearn everything, but going through an RFP, as many of you are preparing to do or in the process of doing, is a process in and of itself. And we started that process in August of 2020, as soon as we heard this announcement, and started building our requirements, building our business case documentation, et cetera. So yeah, we knew we had to get after it, Matt.
No, that's a great point. Matt, that you bring up, right? And I know it comes up in conversation with many of our customers just in terms of the timelines. And we'll speak a little bit more to the due diligence process that you went through and the amount of effort that requires. You know, you mentioned the RFP. So yeah, that's got to be factored in terms of how you get to decision. So thank you for that and the feedback. I think it's valuable. Bill, from a Unisys perspective, what was the reaction to the news?
Very similar to Matt's. I mean, we have a global footprint, and so at that point, we had to make a decision to whether we were going to go with stay with. Well, we had made the decision to go with stay on 8.4 or to go to 8.4. So once they made the decision not to support 8.4 and the end of life moved out to December of 2023. We decided that we had to make some sort of decision either to find another carrier with an on-prem solution or to move to a cloud version. So we've been on Click schedule since 2002. So it's 20 years on the same, on-prem scheduling tool. So, during that time, we became very comfortable with having to customize things ourselves or configure things ourselves. We had a lot of things to consider because going to a cloud version, most often you don't have customizations allowed. So that was, one of the big things for us. But like Matt, we started the RFP process and started down that road. It's a big commitment, a big financial commitment, but we felt that we had to do that just because of the global footprint. It was going to take us quite a while to get there. So
no, it makes a lot of sense, right? And I mean, kind of a similar story there to what Matt described. There's that due diligence process and checking those boxes, and then the journey and the effort begins. And these projects can be enormous. I know firsthand your business. There's a lot of complexity, and not all your customers are the same, right, Bill? So we can talk a bit more about that as well. But I'm also curious, like Derek, given your background, right? We talked about it a bit before, but you come from operations, you come from field service, from a very large entity. With what Matt and Bill are explaining, as you engage with customers, what are we trying to do as the Absolute to help with this process, and how do we act as a trusted advisor to our customers?
So I think I like the introduction, Matt, where you say Derek's not a sales, or folks on the phone, people call me DK. DK's not a salesperson. One of the things that we try to do from a DApp side, and I think one of the values, I'll put on my sales hat a little bit, is that being able to speak the language of the business, but also the two languages of the technology, Click and Salesforce. So when you start doing some of these large enterprise transitions and, folks that understand Click, you're starting to talk about multi-day tasks, or you're starting to talk about very unique Click skills or objectives. Being able to translate those very seamlessly over to Salesforce and to understand how something works in Click, how that translates into how it would work within Salesforce. Being able to do that translation for our customers is critical. So that's kind of the first item. The other item I think Matt and Bill both touched upon was timing, right? Matt, I know we were engaged with Black Hills for a very long time. And the December 2023 is not that far away. Folks may think it is, next year. It's in next year. It's not that far away when you start thinking about enterprise engagements and the duration of these activities and how long they take. Primarily for just only the technical, but you start thinking about the operation side of it. It's change management. A lot of enterprise companies have just, maybe you're 1 or 2, 3, 4 years in on 8.3 on Click, and you're continually making updates and changes. There's a thing in the change management space called change saturation, of how much change can people handle, and being aware of that change and understanding all the impacts. It is a new UI for these folks, right? So there's change management, there's training, there's the rollout strategy. You know, I tell a lot of the folks that I talk with, you know, the technical side is not the tough part, right? We can make like for like very easily within Click to Salesforce. The hard part is all the other stuff around it. You know, the potentially updated business processes, change management, training, rollout strategy. Those things take time and effort. And you know, I worked with Matt, and we worked with our customers around, you know, what is critical path? What is the baseline of what you need to get going? Because there is a wall. Like, it's not like a regular project where it's like, hey, it's 14 months and we're good to go. It's, you have a set timeline and a set deadline to get everybody off. So it's a little bit of rambling, Matt, but those are kind of the two big ones that I see.
Oh, not at all. And I think it's valuable, right? I think it's good feedback. I mean, you're out there trying to drive customer success for us. So I think it's important that, you know, we share that. And it makes me think as well about, you know, Stephen, who runs our pre-sales and solutions organization, and just, you know, getting your perspective, Stephen, around some of the topics as we face this challenge with customers that customers are really focused on. What are your team talking to customers about on a daily basis?
Yeah, absolutely, Matt. So representing pre-sales as part of our sales opportunity, you know, the number one thing that customers are looking for is feature functionality. You know, we're talking about Click, which was a leader in field service management on the Gartner report for many years. And so having to switch off that, you know, many customers want to ensure that their features, their processes, their functional requirements are still viable within field service. And as DK mentioned, being able to translate, you know, Click verbiage into field service verbiage is very important for us, and it also instills that confidence into our customers. I think even more important, and it's all around the compelling event, right, is security. Why is Click going end of life? It's because Microsoft Silverlight is going end of life, and that's going end of life because of security impacts. And so when we look at this, you know, the ecosystem in security for an on-premise solution, there's a lot of work and effort. Many enterprise customers have big IT teams managing patches, managing security concerns, updating databases for whatever reason. And now as we have this paradigm shift of going from on-premise to cloud field service, and how much Salesforce enforces their trust and their security protocols. You know, they were the leader in cloud solutions for 2 decades now, sorry, you know, creating the whole cloud infrastructure in 1999. And so having that paradigm shift and informing and walking with our customers and letting them know that now a lot of that overhead management around security is actually being transitioned to the vendor. It's being transitioned to being a Salesforce responsibility. That's something that we're informing our customers of every day, and letting them know, you know, what value is that bringing you. It may not be bringing you immediate value in this route of going through the migration, but understanding for the long term, you know, no patches, not minding any security. It's actually a weight lifted off of many of our customer shoulders.
So that's a big mindset shift, right? And I'm glad you bring it up, and it may come up later, Stephen, but I think it's a really good way to think about it from a high level, just in terms of infrastructure. And I mean, my background is working with customers from an IT perspective, and so considerations like that and that kind of conversation, like that's really good feedback. Appreciate that. So I'm thinking back to, you know, how we kicked off here and Black Hills and Matt, you know, so we have the uh-oh moment, as you put it, Matt. We have to do the work to get to a decision, and you and Black Hills landed on Salesforce Field Service, or SFS. Could you talk to us a little bit about, you know, that the process leading up to that, and how you landed on SFS is the fit for Black Hills?
Well, essentially, you know, we started back at the beginning. It wasn't just hey, Salesforce is doing this, so now we're going that direction too. Anytime there's a major shift in an enterprise system, we kind of owe it to our company, we owe it to our customers to look at everything the industry has to offer. But before we can even do that, we have to decide what we want. And, are the things that we've implemented over the last decade the things we want to keep going forward with? So we had to make decisions like, are we still staying on touch-based mobile devices, consumer-grade devices, or would we rather be back on laptops? Are we still going to look for an optimizer type of solution? Do we want, everything to be in one solution, or would we consider, splitting this up and having a separate mobile solution from a separate optimization solution? So you kind of have to almost revisit those key business decisions that you had made 10 years ago. So we spent our first month just doing that, getting everything kind of documented around what are those key decisions and what do we think we need going forward, and having different workshops with different business units to get that all put on paper. Then we spent the next number of months translating that into what an RFP would actually look like. What are the requirements of a replacement system? That involved a process of documenting hundreds and hundreds of requirements, things spanning from functionality that the end users would need, all the way to security needs from our security team, and contracting needs and legal aspects. All of those different factors that go into building an RFP had to be considered. And then from there, it was, executing I guess even before we started executing the RFP process, we also relied on Gartner. We were fortunate to have a Gartner subscription. They have some great research out there on, who are the leading vendors in this space. I think Stephen mentioned it earlier that, Click was a leader in this space for a number of years. So we revisited that information. We talked to their analysts. We learned that there's aspects of this technology that's converging in the industry, whether you're looking at a true field service management solution or a mobile workforce management solution. Those are converging, and which solutions are poised best to meet both needs, because we at Black Hills Energy have both needs. We have aspects of high volume, true FSM type of work with our appliance repair business. And then we've got aspects of pure mobile workforce management, whether it's compliance for our natural gas systems. So considering all that research and all that RFP development work, we then started down the RFP process. And guess what? We were in the middle of COVID. So that changed how we would approach it. Normally we would be heading toward big vendor demos right away, and we couldn't do that. So instead, we had a round of written responses. We had a great participation from the industry. It was awesome to see all the different solutions are out there and what's happened and what's been developed and who's doing what. We weeded that all down from all the worded documents, the hundreds and hundreds of pages you get back, down to a series of webinars, vendor demos online. And those were good. Those helped us to narrow down from 10 to 12 down to 3 to 5. And then from there, we weeded down the 3 to 5 down to the top 3. And fortunately, some of the restrictions on COVID lifted, and we were able to get those top 3 vendors on site. So we kind of spent the summer working through questions and comments with those top 3 vendors, and ultimately chose Salesforce Field Service with D-Absolute as our solution going forward. So effectively, we did all of the due diligence and came back to, hey, we are still confident that this is the right solution for Black Hills Energy's customers for the future.
So pretty robust due diligence, right? You've got to
absolutely.
You got to look at what's on the market, but it's interesting you bring up COVID, and we're used to it, right? As D-Absolute, we go through the RFP process frequently, and coming out of that, we always hope to meet with our customers, get closer to our customers, develop the relationship. So glad we were at the table to be able to do that. And is it a fair statement that coming out of COVID, well, I shouldn't say coming out of COVID, we're still kind of dealing with COVID hangover, but you're going to make a decision like this, the people that are going to support you, it's nice to get them in front of you. Is that fair, Matt, based on your feedback?
Yeah, absolutely. It was it's one thing to be sitting in a webinar like this, but actually be able to sit across from people and shake hands, and then have those conversations during our workshops, have those conversations at dinner at night, to really help understand who are we going to be working with, who are we partnering with here, because it's a critical decision. You want to have a good partner, somebody that you can trust, somebody that's aligned with your values and that can help you accomplish your goals.
Appreciate that, Matt. That's really helpful. I'm sure it's helpful to a lot of the folks on the call as well. And you, from a Unisys perspective, Bill, you're your process and getting to decision that SFS was the fit? What did that look like for you?
It was very similar to Matt. We consulted with Gardner as well. They have a really nice utility where you can compare vendors. So we went through all of the various vendors, made comparisons between them, selected 12 to start with. And as we started going through this process, as you mentioned, there's a lot of paperwork, a lot of things to read. We have a small IT team, so it was grueling. So we eventually got it down to 5, and then we down selected to 3, SFS being one of those. So unfortunately, we didn't have an opportunity to meet directly with the vendors. Some of the folks I did know from the previous life at ClickSchedule, but we eventually, made the decision to go with SFS. And one of the main reasons that I mentioned that customization was not allowed by most cloud vendors. SFS does allow for customizations. We have a robust business, and it's a difficult business because it involves servicing multiple customers. So we have hundreds of customers. They all have different requirements. They all have different SLAs. Every time we bring someone on, they always want something unique for themselves. So that was one of the big reasons why we decided to go with SFS. One of the other ones, honestly, was training. I mean, being through many implementations of different versions of Click over the years, the training materials, they weren't good. So we didn't really have a lot of training materials. We had some that were basically branded materials that we didn't have the permissions to overwrite. So we had to send those to a document company and basically have them all rewritten in Unisys terms. So that was expensive. It took a long time to do that. So, but the training, the trailheads with Salesforce was basically it was a big help when we started looking at all of the pros and cons. That was a big one.
Yeah, and that's really good feedback, and I think a good call out, Bill, like with respect to training specifically, Salesforce has done a really good job with Trailhead. And the unique thing there is, as a customer of Salesforce, that training that's available is the same training that's leveraged by us as a Summit partner, as well as internally at Salesforce to enable their own people. So it's very open training ecosystem, and it's free. And we talk a lot about that with our customers. Mm-hmm. And the other thing that kind of jumps out in the conversation, you've mentioned customizations a couple times, and I know Unisys Frontline well enough. I know your Click instance, you did have some customizations there. As you are in project and transitioning over to SFS, what are you seeing happen with the customizations as you move over into Salesforce and SFS?
Yeah, some of those customizations are actually out of the box now, which is good news for us. And it seems like the tool is very configurable. And so when we have these discussions with the Absolute, they say customization, and we're going, oh no, we don't want to pay for any customizations. And they're saying, well, it's really configuration. So it's highly configurable. I don't think we're going to actually need any customizations in this current tool, which is good news.
Well, that is good news. And so we have two C words in play: customization and configuration. And I know the guy on the phone that can help everyone understand what that means. So Stephen, what is a customization versus a configuration in the Salesforce world?
Yeah, it's a great question there, Matt. So when we refer to something as a customization, it means that to achieve that requirement, to achieve that piece of functionality, a line of code has to be written. right? We're talking developers, we're talking programming, everything in that realm. And when we say configuration, it actually means using the solutions tools, in this case, the Salesforce platform tools, that is process builder, that is flows, those are approval processes. It's really using point and click with what we call low or no code configuration. And coming back to the training, right? As Matt said, all the things that we do here at The Absolute, it's given to us through Trailhead. And learning how to make configurations is readily available on Salesforce. And that really empowers us to obviously do the implementation for our customers, but also provide that knowledge on, hey, Mr. Customer, how would you like to change this in the future? You know, businesses are evolving every year, and we want to make sure that we set up our customers for success. And that includes providing some of that knowledge transfer on how to maintain configurations and as well as customizations as well, right? Even though the Salesforce platform is very robust, very configurable, there may always be a need for customization here and there. And so the fact that Salesforce puts so much effort and energy into maintaining such a robust set of customization SDKs or APIs, as is technically denoted, it's just a godsend for people like us here at The Absolute to be able to clearly identify, is this going to be out of the box? Is this going to be a configuration, or is this going to be a customization? Hope that helps.
It does, and now I know I called on the right person on the call to discuss that. So thank you, Stephen. So the uh-oh moment, Matt, and then you go through the process. We talked about that. Now we get to the point where, you know, you're committed, you're making the investment, and hey, this better be driving some sort of opportunity for us as a business. There better be some improvement from a KPI perspective. I'm sure the business has some expectations in how to leverage the platform and not just keep things status quo. Can you talk a little bit about those expectations at Black Hills and maybe some of the KPIs you expect improvements on?
I think that the first major observation I would point out here is that, you know, all the Salesforce people, all the Absolute people, you guys all keep saying the platform, the platform, the platform. It took us a long time to figure out what you meant. But now that we're heading down this path and we understand it, I think it's really valuable for people to understand that this is truly a platform. It's an environment. It's akin, I would say it's akin to Teams in some ways. For us, what it's going to do is put all of our field users and our dispatchers in the same piece of software in the cloud. And that's a big deal because previously with Click, you know, you had Click Schedule, which your dispatch teams use, and you've got Click Mobile, which your field users use, and they're not truly, I mean, they're connected. They're all, you know, set up by this server infrastructure behind the scenes, but they're not truly integrated like you get with the Salesforce platform. The other part about, you know, the whole platform concept is that, you know, with Click, it was always this paradigm that Click doesn't own anything. It's just a pass through from your host system out to your end users and back. And it takes a lot of work to really, you know, design a workflow to initiate work in a host system, translate it through your integration software, deliver it out to your employees and bring it back and have that all, you know, be cohesive. With the Salesforce environment, you know, Salesforce shifts that paradigm because it can be a system of record for you. And there's other capabilities out there that help you integrate, you know, your data sources. There's the energy and utilities data model. There's aspects of analytics. There's, you know, everything that Salesforce has to offer as a company is now there and can be leveraged in your environment if you choose to go there. So for us, that really, you know, means more collaboration. It means more runway for us to start integrating other aspects of the business onto the platform down the road. And generally, it's going to, you know, one of our expectations is that it's going to mean us spending less time focused on patching and maintenance and security, all the things that Stephen mentioned earlier, and more time spent on innovation. We want to continue to bring a better end user experience along for our end users. So I think from a KPI perspective, you know, I'm expecting us to be able to deliver more features faster. I'm expecting us to be able to have, similar or better uptime for our end users. I'm expecting our end users to spend less time downloading patches and updates for their iPads. And it genuinely is intended to improve the end user experience.
Yeah, and that's a great story, right? Because again, we'll go back to the beginning of the discussion, Matt, and we start with the moment of uh-oh. And obviously there's the field service piece that we need to address, but then this thought process that it sounds like Black Hills has around downstream and the more broader thinking, what can we accomplish on platform? Certainly I know it's work to get there, and consuming that is a lot in and of itself, but it's cool to hear about the innovation and the thought process that Black Hills is bringing to the dynamic here. Thank you. Bill, when you think about the same topic, the KPIs, what Unisys is expecting from an upside perspective on the investment, what's top of mind for you?
Well, frankly, I mean, we had some managers, upper level managers that did not want to go with a click tool because they weren't happy with some of the amount of manual movement that the dispatchers had to do, the complaints from customers with bad ETAs. So one of the big selling points was the use of Google Maps. So in Click, we had to use PTV as our geocoding engine, and it wasn't very accurate. I mean, especially when you get outside of the United States, the address formatting is much different. So PTV had a very difficult time resolving those addresses. So there was a lot of manual activity that took place. So we were very happy with the fact that Salesforce was using Google Maps. It's much more accurate. Even in Singapore, for example, they say that the postal code is an actual location, but in Google Maps it is. In PTV, it's about 23 kilometers away. So it was a big selling point with us. So we hope to actually improve our relationship with customers based on better ETAs. Because of that, we also think we're going to save mileage with more accurate ticket assignments. We're also looking at with real-time traffic updates, better ETAs, those types of things. So, and also the analytics bring another dynamic to this as well. So we have a difficult business with many different accounts that we support in many geographies. So but we're not always sure that we have the right people in the right locations to handle the volume. So those analytic tools, I think, is going to help us ensure that we have the right people in the right places to support the business.
Oh, that's great, Bill. And so I'm hearing between Bill and Matt themes of, driving down costs and increasing efficiencies. We're talking about that power of leveraging the power of maps to do that from a travel time perspective. Hopefully we're getting more in-day work scheduled, right? And I think that those are definitely common themes. We talked earlier a little bit about Trailhead wrapped around the Salesforce experience and how great that is. And then Bill, you also brought up analytics dashboards on platform, that business intelligence piece, which I get really excited about when I talk to customers on the Salesforce platform. There's some capabilities there that would traditionally live in an external BI tool. So we are seeing customers leverage that and even take out cost of an external system in some cases because of it. DK, I'm going to turn to you because again, you talk to a lot of customers. What are you hearing customers get excited about? And I'm going to use the platform word again, Matt. So from a platform perspective, what do we hear a lot about, Derek?
So maybe I'll touch on it this way. It's probably, I'll say things that I think customers are not getting excited about that they should be getting excited about, right? So I think Stephen touched on it earlier, is flow capabilities, kind of that no code solution. You know, if I relate back to Click software days, if folks on the phone know Click, you know, you think about generic events within Click. You know, that was a big, oh my God moment within Click software world of, hey, I could create these things, you know, somewhat relatively easily within Click. You start thinking about the capabilities that Salesforce has built into their flows. You know, it is, I encourage you guys, to folks on the phone, to go through Trailhead and just search for flows. It is incredibly powerful. Flows is the no code solution. I would say it's the generic event on a performance enhancement drug. It is incredibly powerful. The full intent is for customers to be able to do the coding themselves. You do not need Apex developers. You do not need Web Lightning component developers. Generally around 80 to 90% of the activities that you want to do, if you think they're too tough to do and you need coding, you could likely do it within flows. So that's the first side. I think the other side that, you know, when you go through these sales cycles and you start getting into these implementations, Salesforce has invested a ton of money into constant improvement of the product. You know? And the challenge in some of these implementations, you know, they take, to Matt's point, sometimes over a year, right? And during that period of a year, Salesforce will be constantly improving. And, you know, they'll have their spring and summer and winter releases. So being able to work with clients and partners that can time development activity to align with what is being announced in these releases. So if you asked, you know, 6 months ago or 3 months ago around bundling, that wasn't available within Salesforce SFS, right? So we knew that was coming up, and being able to time development cycles so that you're not wasting time, wasting money, and having that visibility into what's coming out in the future, I think is hugely is critical. I think Salesforce is one of the great companies that does that. And I think lastly, operational dashboards. I think most folks on the phone that have used Click can agree their dashboards were not great. And I'm using great as a very politically correct term, I guess you could call it. They were not great, where within Salesforce, out of the box within SFS, there are some really great operational dashboards. You know, we're not talking need to go Tableau or other, like straight out of the box of SFS, there are some real operational dashboards that tell you near real time what is happening in the field today, right? So as a field manager, as an executive, as a people leader, I don't need to phone up my dispatch and say, hey, how's my day going? What's my utilization rate? How many calls have we missed? Right? You could pull that up on an operational dashboard straight out of the box. And SFS has built that right into the product, right? So it's a lot of the things that we do as a company, trying to educate our customers around, hey, when you ask for a requirement, we're challenging the clients and ourselves to say, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? This is something that you don't know about that you could and you should utilize. And in some cases for us, it's, as an SI, it may be only turning a 1 to a 0 or a 0 to a 1 to enable this feature. And it's a huge value to our customers.
That's awesome. And that theme of innovation and the timing around a project plan to get our customers those pieces of innovation that's relevant to them when it's appropriate, I think is really powerful, right? So in other words, we talked about it before, we don't want to be customizing if we don't need to, and it's coming down the pipe out of the box anyway, right? And that's going to be our approach. We did have a request from one of the audience members, and it fits into that theme of Salesforce innovation. So Stephen, as we think about what customers are getting excited about and what's available, Matt from Black Hills, before he brought up Energy and Utilities Cloud. Can you speak to what that is and why customers in that space should be getting excited?
Yeah, definitely. Field service management, I mean, it's huge. You know, we're working with field service management for different verticals. You know, we're talking telecommunications, utilities, oil and gas, home services, health industry. There's so much. And because of the nature of all these different industries, what Salesforce has actually done is they've released a new cloud per se. We call it the Energy and Utilities Cloud. And what that's really helping customers like Black Hills, for example, is it brings in a data model that is reflective of that industry. So when we're talking about utilities, for example, right, everyone is running a meter and viewing premise location and how much electricity and what's the billing rate and so on and so forth. And ENU Cloud, Energy and Utilities Cloud, it adds that layer right out of the box. And so for an implementer like the Absolute, it saves us time and money on implementation. And for customers, it really allows them to streamline the application of field service management for their industry. And so you can really see how much investment Salesforce is making, not only on field service, like Derek mentioned, with all the releases, but also supplementary products and clouds and modules to really tack on for any given customer to streamline their implementation and to get the most bang for their money, depending on what kind of business case they're trying to solve for. So it's really impressive that Salesforce has invested so much to really streamline various industries around field service management. And another thing I want to talk about, it's something that Bill mentioned, it's Google Maps, right? Back in the Click days, customers had to bring their own GIS server, whether that was Esri, PTV, whatever it must be. But now that field service actually includes Google Maps, and that's both a back end and a front end. So we get all the street level routing, the geocoding, all of that back end stuff to help automate, you know, location and travel, but the front end as well. And it's so important. I use Google Maps to go to the grocery store and to the gas station. And now we have dispatchers and field technicians leveraging Google Maps to also operate their field service activities, right? Getting from one work order to the next and having dispatchers actually blow up Google Maps on their desktop to view the location of all their technicians and work orders. So we can really see how Salesforce is investing a lot into this product, and we can really see how customers are starting to see this. And us at The Absolute, we're really here to inform customers of some of these items that they may not be thinking of, like TK said, and we're always so happy to bring that knowledge and to get the other wow factor from our customers, right? Not like, oh no, this is a bad thing. It's like, oh wow, this is what I'm getting with this product, and we happily say yes.
Matt, maybe just a quick point. I know I've just been cognizant of time, but just a couple of points on ENU Cloud, right? What things Stephen had highlighted, the value of the data model. Within ENU Cloud, I would say it's almost a suite of products within ENU Cloud. Just from interest of time, there is Omni Studio, which is part of that inclusion, which includes things like pre-packaged workflows, especially when you start looking at Salesforce as a platform that utilizes that the foundational data model. So as you start utilizing Salesforce as a platform, moving into things like call center or sales or marketing or any of those other areas, you have that common platform with the data model, but also with Omni Studio, things like Omni scripts and data raptors and integration procedures. Those are pre-built, pre-packaged workflows that utilize that data model. So as you start expanding the platform, things become, I wouldn't say necessarily easier, but very smooth as you start expanding that platform. So I encourage you folks, go on to, again, I keep mentioning it, go on to Trailhead. It is free, right? It's amazing how Salesforce offers so much information for free. But if you look up ENU Cloud Omni Studio, it is and you're thinking about Salesforce as a platform, and you're in the ENU space, it is definitely something to take seriously.
Thanks, Derek. I think that's a great call out for the attendees. And, we do have kind of one topic left, but before we go there, we've been talking a lot about technology and the platform, and you've also got internally the processes and the people, and what's that impact going to be. So I think we have a really good question from the audience. And Matt, I'm going to give you a stab, and then Bill, you're in project right now. What are you thinking about from a transition perspective for the end users and that change management piece? Is that something that you think there's going to be a lot of lift around, or what's your thought process around the experience in Salesforce SFS for these folks?
Well, change management is always very challenging, especially when you are changing processes and technology. For us, I think we'll see our fair share. I mean, if you look at, so referencing Gartner again, Gartner has this great thing called the hype cycle, and it shows how, you get through this peak of expectations, and then you get down to the reality of when you implement something and then you climb back out of it. We're all going to go through that change curve, regardless of how good of a job we do on the project, just because a lot of people have to adopt and leverage this new technology and have to learn, new ways of things that they're doing in their daily job that are not exactly the same. So we take that, definitely to heart. We're already working with our training team now. We're in the, the design build phase of the project, but we've got training engaged already. We've got a communications team engaged already. We're starting to think about those aspects of change management. We've got representatives from each of our business units in operations engaged so that they can help start translating what the project is going to do in operations. So we've been laying that groundwork as we go, but it's change management for us. It's just one of those things you can probably never do enough of, because it's so important to get the word out that yes, things are changing. These are the reasons for those changes. This is what's in it for you, and this is how we're thinking about it holistically for the company.
Yeah, that's great, Matt. And it's something that we've got to talk about, consider, and be aware of any kind of change, right? And when we talk about change, as soon as that user interface is a little bit different, the experience is a little bit different. It's not a for better or for worse conversation necessarily. To your point, it just is different. And being prepared for that, and that planning that you put into that, I mean, very wise, obviously. So obviously, you're not your first rodeo. And then Bill, from your perspective at Unisys, from an end user change perspective, what are you anticipating? Is it going to be a big thing at Unisys?
Yeah, I think it's going to be a big thing. We've already engaged our OCM team to start looking at the materials and where we need to go as far as training. The Absolute is going to actually prepare all of the training materials for us, and then we're going to do train-the-trainer sessions. What adds complication to it all is our dispatchers are globally situated. So we have dispatchers in India, dispatchers in Hungary, in Brazil, Colombia, and actually in Singapore. So it's we're going to have to translate some of that into different languages and all of that. So then there's, at the same time, we're changing our ticketing system, right? So we're going from a 30-year ticketing system, homegrown ticketing system to ServiceNow. So that's another whole change management piece that we're going through, and we're just adding this on top of that. And that's the other thing with, going to Salesforce. We're bringing in, 2 pipes into of data into it, and the mobile tool itself has to deal with 2 different ticketing systems. And so Salesforce said that was no problem. So that was a good thing. And I did want to mention one thing. I didn't mention earlier the app exchange. So that was another good feature that we plan to use Zencraft for, our proof of delivery, because we have carriers globally that don't always have the most consistent deliveries. So we have to spend a lot of labor trying to chase those down ourselves. And also, we use CEM, which is a customer engagement module. So we're going to be using Survey Vista from the App Exchange as well, which is fully integrated. So that's another good feature.
Yeah, it's a really good call out, Bill. And I think that to your point, so App Exchange, for those that aren't familiar, it's the largest B2B app exchange in the world. And so what Salesforce has done is, as part of their ecosystem, they do allow partners to develop specific functionalities that will live natively on the platform, and provide that through the App Exchange to customers. Some of it's free, some of it's paid, but these products are extremely vetted from a security perspective, and the approval process is really robust from a Salesforce perspective. So think of it as the opportunity to add very specific enhancements to the platform as it suits your business. And I'm very conscious of time. I know we're up against 4 minutes, and I just saw Erica turn her camera on. What I am going to do, Matt, I'm going to ask you first. Do you have any closing thoughts, any words of wisdom for the attendees that you'd like to share before we close out?
Probably just, if you're working on if it's as large of an effort as it is at Black Hills Energy, start early. Find a good partner. A good partner is probably one of the biggest things we've learned over the years. Systems integrators in our world tend to be better for us when they're customer oriented. We've worked with software development firms that have their own professional services group, and we've worked with pure systems integrators like The Absolute. And we find that, for us, the pure systems integrators like The Absolute bring more of a focus on us and advocate for us. So that's my best words of wisdom on something we've learned over the years, Matt.
Appreciate it. And we appreciate the partnership with Black Hills and build a partnership at Unisys. And that's what we strive to do, is truly pull in and provide that relationship, the guidance, the expertise, and work together as a single unit. We're all working together towards the same thing, and ultimately your success is our success. So appreciate those comments, Matt. Erica, I'm going to turn it back over to you to help us kind of wind down with 2 minutes left. I want to thank everyone, the panel of participants today, and I want to thank all the attendees as well. Erica.
Sure, absolutely. Bill, did you have anything you wanted to add to that for closing words before I sign off on everybody today?
And I agree with Matt. I mean, start early, find a good partner. The Absolute has done this before, so it's not reinventing the wheel, and that's a big thing. It's kind of more of a lift and shift. They know all of the data mapping, and I think it's going to be much easier if you find someone that's done this before that can help you through it.
Great. Thank you very much, Bill. All right, everybody, I just want to let you know that the recordings will be made available in the next day or two, so you should be receiving it by email. If you have any other questions in that email, there's going to be a way to reach us. So please don't hesitate to send us any questions. And thank you very much, everyone, for attending our webinar today. We hope you enjoyed it, and take care.